Well, welcome everyone. It's nice to be here with you this week. A couple of announcements. The first one is having a retreat June 25, 26, and 27. And I encourage you, those of you going through this intense Kundalini awakening process, I encourage you to come on the retreat, to join us. The retreat's a time where we let go of all resistance. And this makes the Kundalini fabulously happy. It's the words I'm going to use. See, when Kundalini first comes into you, for most of you, it experiences ridiculous amount of resistance. The ego doesn't know what Kundalini is, and it just fights with it, it argues with it, it clamps down and says no to this. But retreat is a time where we intentionally open and we say, I'm here. I'm joining with this energy. I'm joining with this grace. I'm saying an absolute yes to the unknown. I'm going to go on a journey and explore this grace called Kundalini. And, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Retreats are not easy, but they're powerful. I've been on, over 100 retreats. I don't know how many, but more than 100. And none of them were easy. None of them were a walk in the park. But all of them were absolutely powerful and transformative. And if you want this energy to awaken and to integrate, to heal, to smooth out, and to come into a state of peace and freedom, it's important that you do some retreat practice. I have this interesting job where people come to me after having incredibly powerful experiences. And, they tell me they want to change, they want to grow. But, I offer them all these things to do, these practices and ways to connect with the energy. And then they go and they disappear, some of them, and show up like 5 years later. I say, well, did you do any of the stuff we spoke about? Well, no, not really. And I'm struggling, Craig, with the same symptoms and experiences. Well, you didn't make any big steps on the path. And that's what the Kundalini is wanting from you, is it wants you to transform your life from the inside out. And retreat is a time to do that, to step fully on the path, to say yes. And in a real sense, to experiment with the energy, to open to it and to see, is this something dangerous? Is this something I should fear? Or is this something actually quite incredible? Quite incredible. Now, I had this funny experience of waking up here in Colorado this morning. And I get up real early and I take the dogs out for a walk. But today in Colorado, we had this really rare experience called rain. Now, for many of you, you experience rain all the time, but in Colorado, we have 300 plus days of sunshine. And then we have snow, but it doesn't rain so much here. I can't even remember the last time it rained here. Like I live on the edge of the desert and these massive, snow-capped mountains. And so my mountains right above me are getting snowed on. But outside my house, it's rain. And so I have these two little dogs. And, I tried to take them out for a walk. And both of them looked at me like I was crazy. Like, I'm not going to go out there in that. I'm not going to go out in the storm. I'm not going to get wet. And in a sense, that's what Kundalini is like. It's like a rainstorm that's happening within you. And here in Colorado, one of the things that the people of Colorado do is we tend to embrace storms. So if it snows 4 feet, we're not going to just stay inside and be afraid. We go outside and we play in the storm. We literally surf on the storm through skiing, through snowboarding, through climbing mountains. Like we love powder. We dance in it. Like there's been times when I've connected my roof to the ground with snow. It's like my roof, just shoveling my roof, and walk off my roof and onto the earth, because that's how much snow there is. And my dogs, they looked at this rainstorm the same way most people look at Kundalini. They say, it's intense, it's overwhelming, I don't understand it. Why is this happening to me? Like, why is my fur all wet? I literally had to carry little Buster out and plop him down in the rain. And he gave me the meanest look. And, like I just dropped him off in hell. I'm like, you have to go potty, Buster. Like, he can't stay inside for 14 hours. You have to go outside and go potty. And for many of us, that's what we do with Kundalini. When Kundalini awakens in us, we scowl at it. Same way Buster was scowling at me. Say, I don't like this. I don't like this pummeling, this pounding, this energetics, this storm. I don't understand it. I'm not in control of it. What is it? It doesn't make sense. I want my old life back. And when we resist Kundalini, it just gets worse. But if we surrender with it and go with the flow, if we surf on the waves of this grace, then something quite miraculous happens inside. Whole new realms of existence can awaken. Our whole consciousness can shift. What we know ourselves to be as this limited egoic being can shift into a state of vast, spacious consciousness and freedom. You feel overwhelming love and bliss in the heart, and immense energy and Buddha nature throughout the system. And it's a big shift, and it's going to require that you get wet, like literally, that you become pummeled by the energy, but just letting the energy pummel you into something greater. So again, like I live on the edge of the desert, we don't get rain much. And when rain comes, it pummels this area. We have flash floods and all this stuff. The earth is just eroding at an enormous rate when it rains. But with the rain, it brings new life. Turns everything green. The desert and the mountains come alive. And the Kundalini wants to do the same thing to you. It wants to pummel you into submission. But you're not submitting on an MMA octagon. You're submitting, you're surrendering into a greater life beyond ego. So anyways, before we get into this week's speaker, someone reached out to me, James or Jim, with a bunch of questions. I thought I'd just respond to these questions really quickly, because it has very much to do with this storm that I'm speaking about inside. So James writes, Craig, for many years now, I've been experiencing unusual physical phenomena, including spontaneous bouts of deep, vigorous, whole body breathing, even during sleep. So James, that's pranayama. So that's the intelligence of Kundalini waking up in you, and it's wanting to heal. So it's trying to heal, it's trying to move some of the energetic blockages within your nervous system. And so that's a good thing. And so the same way, like I walk outside in the rain and I surrender to it and I get wet, I encourage you to surrender to the breathing. He goes on to write, he says, I have spontaneous movements in my limbs and my body. So those are called kriyas. So when this storm is raging in you, sometimes it's going to create kriyas. And so you just let the body move, you let it dance. So you let God move your breath and you let God move your body. So what I'm speaking about is the opposite of resistance. With resistance, we say, no, I don't like this. This is weird. This is bizarre. With surrender, we just say yes. We let it flow. We let the waters of grace flow, even if it moves our body. There's an emerging sense of space in the head with shrinking of thoughts, which doesn't feel like fog, but rather the clarity of emptiness. And then he experiences poor memory as a result. And so again, this is the transformation that I'm speaking about, where you go from having a mind filled with thoughts and busyness. Like a lot of people just have random thoughts all day long about nothing. But as this awakening occurs within you and you surrender to it, the mind will become very vast and spacious. And yeah, a byproduct of that is your memory might disappear, but most of the time you'll find that you don't really need to think about the past. You might have to write some things down. Like I write some things down to make sure I get my to-do list done. But there's great freedom, there's great joy in having a mind that's empty. So that's a good thing. It's, that's what Buddha nature is empty mind. And you'll see this emptiness within your own self, and also you'll see it out in the world, in reality. It'll really shift your consciousness and how you view the world, from being egoically based, to seeing Buddha nature everywhere. This is good. It goes on, right? There's a sense of space or transparency, as if seeing inside the body. Yeah, that's another experience of emptiness. So that's beautiful. There's sensations of movement inside the body. So that's that storm. So there'll be energies that are flowing. Sometimes the chakras will be spinning. Sometimes they'll just be vibrating light. There'll be different sensations and vibrational frequencies that will be flowing. And that's the grace of Kundalini, as Mother Shakti's flowing through your nervous system. So I encourage you to enjoy it and just let the energy dance. So when Kundalini first wakes up, for many of us, it feels like a storm. We feel overwhelmed by it. This is tense. It's out of control. But as you surrender to it, you just notice, oh, it's just energy flowing. And it can feel wonderful, euphoric, blissful, spacious, feel very powerful and brilliant and bright. Sometimes you can feel really hot or cold, or and these energies can be very transformative as well, and healing. Sometimes they'll bring up old, depressed aspects of the self or anxious aspects of the self. And it's bringing them forward, not to punish you, but rather so those things can be healed. So anything that's going to be healed, it has to be brought into the light first, to be seen and to be met with love. He goes on to write, a kind of relaxation in the eyes. They don't dart around. I hope not. When we're really anxious, our eyes dart around all over the place. But when we are really relaxed, the eyes just tend to gaze in a soft manner. And so, yeah, this is good. I would like to know what all this means. Well, what it means is you're going through a powerful awakening process, my friend. And what may I expect in the future? Should I be doing anything or just allow? So this is where James has surrendered right at the end. He has all these questions. Should I be doing anything or should I just allow? So if there's any doing on the path of Kundalini, it's allowing. Just allow energy to flow. And what should you expect? I encourage you to expect nothing, but rather to be open to everything, to be open to the intelligence of Kundalini, and let it speak through you, act through you, live through you. Let it heal you from the inside out as you go through this process. Again, these are great questions. These are questions I get every day. So I thought I would address them. But this is what I call, if we were golfers, we'd say this is par for the course. It is absolutely normal. The movements and the breath, it's just energy wanting to flow, and things that are unraveling and healing. Sometimes things get really dark. Sometimes they get really light. I encourage you to trust the process. But ultimately, it's bringing us into this greater state of consciousness, one where we experience vast emptiness as our nature. So that's a huge part of it. The second part is unconditional love, where we're willing to embrace all the darkness within us and around us and meet it with love. And then the third is Buddha nature, where we just allow everything to roll over us without getting excited, without clinging, without chasing, without fearing. And so anyways, beautiful questions, Jim. Okay, I think we'll probably transition now to the questions, and a couple questions popped up um, in the group shares there. But if you have a question you want to ask, just make it clear and direct. And also, if you feel like you want to share in a clear and direct way, you can bring that forward as well. While we're waiting for hands to raise, I'll just respond to some of the things that came forward from the group. Just in reference to what Leon was saying there at the end, I thought it was brilliant. As we face existential fears within our own self, we might start to see, in our dream world or in our meditative world, when we're just sitting and opening, a force is coming forward, like this blue demon that visited Leon. And one of the things that Leon did was so brilliant, and this is where we're speaking about Kundalini transforming your nature into the realm of unconditional love, is a great fear comes in the form of a demon, and the willingness to look at the demon and not run away, not be afraid, but rather to embrace it. And one of the things that I call this is calling the ego's bluff, calling the bluff of existential fear. So it comes into your life, and a demon would come and visit me, and it would say something like, I'm going to kill you, or this or that. And so I would sit and say, show me death. But I would say it from a place of love and let the thing, energetically kill me. But then I'd realize, oh, but it didn't. And so this is through the doorway of love and the doorway of fearlessness that we begin to discover Buddha nature. And that's the gift of Kundalini, is it can give you this opportunity to transform your consciousness through facing existential fear and not backing away. Not backing away. It's quite a beautiful story. So thank you, Leon, for that. Anne asked, basically with all that what she's going through, is like, will this reap anything? And of course, the answer is yes. And so when we have trust on the path, the nervous system will begin to relax, and we'll trust that there's a plan here, that we're growing, that we're evolving, that this path leads somewhere. When we don't have trust, it can feel like we're just, thrown to the wolves, or just like a lost sailor on the ocean, just drifting at sea. But when we trust, like, no, we're going in a direction. Even if we have to face some storms, we're headed in a direction. If we can trust, the nervous system will relax, and there'll be more hope in your experience. If you don't trust, it's just much harder to winter the storm. My mother comes out to visit me in Colorado sometimes, and the last time she came, it snowed 4 feet, and then the next day it snowed 3 feet. So we had 7 feet of snow, which for you Europeans, that's taller than a tall man. And I told my mom, just trust, trust the roads will be clear, trust the sun will shine again. And of course, on the third day, the sun comes out, the snow starts melting. It's like, trust, you're not going to just die here in a cabin on the side of a mountain. Trust, have faith. It's just a storm. That's all it is. And sometimes a storm can go on for a period of time, but eventually it passes. And the gift of the storm is it will teach you to be stronger, to be stronger. And for some of you, you're being taught how to work with Kundalini. And, that's a path of you learning to integrate the energies and how to be strong and stable and clear while all this energy is flowing through your body. I, like Alex, I complained. I said, gosh, God, can I just sit here and meditate? Do I have to go back to work? And God and life said, yeah, you have no money. You have to get back to work. And so, but then you learn to be strong and stable with this grace flowing through you. Other times, God does what, God is doing with Catherine, which says, hey, you need to learn how to rest. You need to learn how to stop. You need to learn how to trust that I I am the one who nurtures you. I'm the one who supplies wealth and abundance and support. I'm the one who supports you. So the ego thinks that I'm the one who supports, but God is trying to teach us, no, I am the giver. I'm the giver of life. And so sometimes God will take our job away from us and teach us that it's okay to rest, it's okay to be supported and nurtured. And then, money might come in a miraculous type of way, or a way we didn't understand or expect. But support will come. It will. It will. It might be much different than you imagined. Okay, I'm trying to see if there's any others. Looks like Chris has a question. One of the things I wanted to do was to respond to some of Chris's comments about nausea. Because nausea is something I often forget to speak about as a Kundalini symptom, but it's something I had for many years, as I had a lot of fire in the belly. So when Kundalini is working in the second and third chakras, it tends to create a lot of heat, and the body can respond to that in oftentimes one of two ways. So it can grip real intensely, and we can experience what Leon was talking about, like this existential fear. There's a gripping against the energy. Or when we open to the energy, or as the fear begins to burn in us, there could be a lot of nausea. And nausea will make us feel, of course, sick to our stomach. Like I felt like I was going to vomit, for a number of years. And I just embraced it. I just knew it was Kundalini fire. And so I just embraced it, breathed into it, trusted it. And, my teacher used to tell me that nausea is a sign of purification, that basically light is burning up old karma, it's burning up old fear. And so sometimes as the Kundalini just burns through it, or we do what Leon did, where he opened into his heart and you respond to fear with compassion. And it's a different way of transforming fear. And so both are great ways. But when the Kundalini when it cuts through fear directly, especially existential fear, you should expect lots of nausea. And some people get, really trip over physical illness stuff. I didn't go there into, physical illness stuff. So the big three great fears, let me see if I can pull them forward, that Kundalini brings up are, I'm going to go crazy when we have, just too many thoughts or out of control energies in the body. I'm going to become homeless because, we lose control of life, or we awaken and realize, oh, I'm not in control. God's in control. And so there's this fear facing that. I'm going to, lose control of my life, become homeless. I'm going to be physically ill is a big one for a lot of people. A lot of people. I'm going to be physically ill. This is going to kill me. This isn't Kundalini. It's cancer or something like that. And listen, there's no shame. Nothing wrong with going to the doctor, doing some blood tests, because sometimes Kundalini will bring forward dual diagnosis stuff where it's Kundalini and yes, you have to change your diet, or, you have, IBS or whatever. But oftentimes when we relax the nervous system, most of those symptoms go away. And so that's good to know, but go get checked out if you need to. Chris, I'm going to see if I can unmute you here.
Thank you for that. I just have a brief question about the relationship between Kundalini and trauma work. I've worked with lots of people, and one thing that is important in trauma work is sort of titration and resource. And I know from my personal experience in the last several months, there was a period where I was having big releases and just going like just really intense stuff, and then there was a period where it seemed like I needed to settle it down a little bit, that I would have a big release in much worse shape for a week. So it was like I felt like I needed to titrate the experience of what was going on. And but that sort of becomes a managing thing of like, well, how far do I go, or how much do I titrate?
Exactly. And see, that's a beautiful question there, and that's something that of course is a question that would normally come up with someone who's really well trained. So a couple things here. So Look, if you are spinning out of control in life, yeah, you need to titrate. You need to get some ground under your feet. You need to plug into support and resource. Absolutely. Absolutely. But the skill of titration, you're not going to be able to hold on to through the process of awakening. And so the key to this is just knowing and trusting that we are awakening into God. We're awakening into a greater consciousness. So that means we have to let go of, anything of mind, anything of ego. We have to surrender. And most people don't want to let go of the things that work good for them. Most people, we spoke about this last week, don't want to let go of their skills. Like a really skilled meditator, if you look at their mind and their consciousness, like the best meditators on the planet tend to be highly analytical, highly disciplined, highly controlled. And one of the things that I had, I didn't ever have such an analytical mind, but boy, was I disciplined. Like I could sit for 12 hours. If my teacher told me sit, Craig, for 12 hours, I could sit for 12 hours because I had that discipline. But I had to let go. Like discipline has a little bit of energy like this, where there's, like some tension there and some will and some force. And I had to let go of Craig's will. I had to let go of, my discipline, my attachment to discipline, and ultimately surrender into this immense force of grace. And so, if we look at like trauma, say trauma work in the 70s was like what Ann was describing. It's encounter groups and we're screaming and we're just letting go. We're taking LSD. And now it's, people, the extreme is we take ayahuasca and just get blasted into these dimensions. And so I'm a big fan of that. And if someone is really like losing their mind and, on the verge, just getting kind of nutty or feeling out of control or feeling like they're going to melt into psychosis, yeah, they need to titrate. But, Chris, like when I feel into your consciousness, it seems as if you have your life together. That things are, wrapped up pretty tight. And I don't mean, I mean that as a compliment. Like things are pretty clear, pretty disciplined. And for you, my friend, I would actually recommend the opposite of titration and to be a little bit more of a gambler and to push the edge. And in a sense, like Leon brought up this beautiful image of you're faced with a demon and just to ask a question, what if I loved this demon? What would happen? And the demon comes out and it kills you. But then you wake up and you realize, oh, but it didn't. I'm still here. This consciousness that I am cannot be destroyed. It cannot be harmed. And so to push you beyond the realm of titration. Now, of course, when you work with clients, you need to feel into that intuitively and see what does that individual need. If we want to be ethical and just make sure we're following all the rules and that type of thing, it's like, yeah, do more titration. But in your own personal world, like, do you trust that it's okay to go into this nausea and let it burn and turn into a bonfire and see what happens? See what happens. There's this wonderful thing that happens with titration is if you have a deep relationship with God, with the earth, with Buddha nature, and you're giving birth to more trust, what you'll find is you'll have to titrate a lot less. But when we don't trust and when we're not, you could use the word resource, but when you're not plugged in to the grace of God, when you're not plugged into the earth itself, when you're not plugged in fully and trusting with Buddha nature, the ego is going to feel like it has to titrate a lot more. And so for me, I was a fan of fire. And so when I felt nausea, I would sit in that nausea and I would let it burn. And in my belly, one of the great things that burned up was my highly controlled, disciplined nature. And I had to let go into this wildness and let the wildness consume me and realize that I was one with wildness. And in that wildness was this great force of love, of strength, of power. And so anyways, I hope there was something in there that was helpful. Yeah, yeah. And, I will say this about, I laugh a little bit at titration because I see titration as a little bit of a trend, and people will hit me, well, this study says you should titrate, and this other study says you should titrate and you shouldn't go all in. I started off, just jumping fully in, but I was able to do that because I trusted myself and I trusted my own sanity. And when you have faith in your own sanity that these feelings of trauma, they're just feelings, they're just energies. And I'm very comfortable with feeling lots of pain. I'm very comfortable with having panic attacks, comfortable laying on the floor and convulsing and having kriyas. I'm comfortable with it. And I realized just right in the beginning, like, this is spiritual experience. It's not here to kill me. And again, Chris, when I feel into you, you have a very solid, very healthy psyche. Now, for individuals who don't have a solid and healthy psyche, titrate more, please. So less is more when you have when your psyche's kind of, falling apart in every arena. But when you're well practiced and well disciplined, when you have a clear analytical mind, the fear of people who are really intellectual, the greatest fear tends to be to feel. And I'm going to invite you just to push the edges there. It's like, is it okay for Chris to feel more? For anyone in the group, if you have a strong mind, is it okay for me to feel more? And as my teacher said, Craig, feel more, just don't believe the thoughts that come with the feelings. So as trauma's releasing, and it's coming with all kinds of thoughts, you're going to go crazy, this is too much, I can't control this, I can't handle this. I say, yes, agree with the ego. You, ego, cannot handle this. But can true nature handle this? That's a much different question. Can vast, spacious awareness handle a storm of trauma or fear or chaos? It's like, oh yeah, Buddha nature can handle this. Like Bob was describing, you breathe, you feel, you let it flow. And you trust. It's just energy. And there's love here, this ground under my feet. And if it ever gets to be too much, you do exactly what the Buddha did. You open your eyes and you touch the earth. And you say, this is what's real. And in a sense, that's how the Buddha titrated. He just reached down, put his hand in the earth, said, this is what's real, as his body shaked and trembled and fireworks and unconscious craziness. And he was releasing the trauma of his experience. It got to be too much. He reached down and he touched the earth. He said, this is what's real. And I've probably done that, 100,000 times. Wow, energy was exploding and my body was convulsing, or tears and mucus just pouring out of, my body. And I looked like like I should belong at the mental health center. I'd reach down and I'd touch the earth, say, this is what's real. And let the earth ground you. Let the earth titrate you. Let the earth hold you. And this is where the ego is surrendering into being supported. With resourcing, it's like the ego's looking to itself to resource. Again, that's a beautiful thing. But there's something different that can also happen when the ego can resource into the earth, into Buddha nature, and let itself be held by the earth itself. Let it be held by the arms of God. Let yourself be held by the Divine Mother. And so anyways, beautiful question, Chris. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's do one more question. what's happening is your throat chakra is opening. And as it opens, a lot of energy is flowing, and you're getting the, the spinning head kriya. So that's like again, very typical kriya. As the Kundalini starts to flow up through the throat chakra, it gets a little bit bottlenecked there at the throat, and it's going to create, this type of energy. So you're having a kriya move through your throat. So Kundalini is moving through you. So the yawning and the like the gulping in the throat is part of your unconscious nature isn't trusting the energy, or it's fighting with it, or it's resisting it. Again, that's normal. I had those two symptoms as well. And so the big practice for you is, the big practice for any of us is, can I feel? Can I feel what's within me? And so, like you described, you said you feel this band tightening under the rib cage. So that's the solar plexus chakra. That has to do with your will. It has to do with power. It has to do with control. The throat chakra as well has to do with control and expression. The throat and the belly tend to be intimately connected. And oftentimes it's connected through the realm of trust. Through the realm of trust. And so the mantra for you, or the question for inquiry, is, can I feel what's within me? So a great practice, if you ever feel a band of tension, if you feel any tension or gripping in the body, is just to take one of your hands and put it on the chakra that feels the tension. So you put one hand on your, just right below your rib cage, and the other hand you put it on your heart. And it can be helpful to do this. I'm going to just use this word, to do it naked. And by that, I mean to have skin on skin. So your hand, just, under your shirt. So you touching and feeling the warmth of your heart. And the reason that is I want you to feel the warmth of your heart chakra radiating light. So just feeling the aliveness of your hand, and all the sensitivity in your hand, connecting to the heart, and you're just breathing into the heart and feeling the goodness of your heart. And just breathing that in, connecting to the goodness and the love of your heart. And then your other hand, you put it right on that place of the point of pain. So this would be your solar plexus. So one hand on your heart, one on your solar plexus. You're connecting to the radiance of your heart, and you're breathing into the gripping. You're breathing into the fear. And you're just gently letting yourself know it's okay to feel this fear. And by feeling, I mean it's okay to open to it, to experience it, and just to notice the sensations of the fear. And for some of you, you might just sit and you might feel gripping for literally a month. Like I was telling Chris a moment ago, I would sit with nausea for 9-month periods, or just, wow, there's a lot of nausea here. And I just breathe into it. And, I'd sit, for an hour sit, and, sometimes 2 hours. And right in the beginning, the nausea would feel like tight and tense and burning. And, by the end of the hour, the nausea would feel more fluid and like goes flowing throughout my body. And some would say, like the nausea would actually increase, it would intensify, it would spread out, but it was flowing. It was flowing. And I took that as progress, as progress. So a lot of times egoically, if the symptom intensifies, the ego says, no, it's getting worse. Not necessarily. Just like with a baby, like as you're pregnant, your belly's stretching. It doesn't mean you're getting worse. It means something is growing, and eventually it's going to come out in a really, painful, intense way. But eventually the baby is released into the world, and something beautiful has come forward. And so I look at working with pain or working with trauma, a very similar way to a pregnancy. As you're breathing into it, you're inviting that alchemical reaction, that tantric, experience of the pain will intensify, things will heat up, and then it'll start to loosen up and let go and release. And when you sit with it in this way, your consciousness begins to shift, very much how Leon was speaking about his experiences. A demon came, and at first he's terrified of it. And at the end, he's smiling with it. He's embracing it. He's loving it. And then fear is emptying out of his body. And so I encourage you to sit, to breathe, to feel. And it's important here not to get frustrated and not to, look at the clock. The big mistake most people do is they look at the clock and they say, well, I've done this. I've done this, Craig. I've done it for a day. I did it for an hour. I did it for a year. I did it for 3 years. And some things, like if you have intense trauma within you, sometimes we have to sit with it for years. And I want you to imagine each time you're sitting with it and you're breathing fully into it, you're embracing it, you're not turning away, there's a layer of that trauma that's releasing. There's a layer of it. We're peeling the onion. And if tears come, we allow tears. And it's important to do this, like laying down in bed. This is another way, Chris, of titrating, is you let your body be held. And when the body's held, the nervous system will trust more, which will give you the ability to feel more and to be more efficient in your practice. So laying down and letting the nervous system be held and supported by the earth, by the bed, by the couch, and just helping the nervous system to feel safe, helping the ego to feel safe. The safer the ego is, the quicker the healing goes. The more scared the ego is, the slower the healing goes. And so it's important to help your nervous system to first feel safe. And laying down is a great way of doing that. And sometimes, Cynthia, it can even be helpful to go on YouTube and, to listen to a guided meditation while you're just holding your heart and holding your solar plexus, or put on some of that, that spiritual music, the 532 megahertz or whatever whatever those vibrational frequencies are, and just listen to a healing vibration, while you're just being held by the earth and you're breathing into your heart and you're holding your belly. And it can be helpful just to have a little soothing music there with you to calm and support the nervous system. So anyways, beautiful question, Cynthia. You have all kinds of energy flowing through your system. You're just not using the same vocabulary. One last thing I'll say real quick. Someone asked, does it have to go directly up the spine? So yes and no. For many of us, the Kundalini just wakes up like in one chakra and then another and then another. Yes, that's Kundalini awakening. But in other times, it's very clear that it has the, kind of archetypal, it goes directly up the spine and out the top of the head. Ultimately, we want both. What the mistake many people make is they want just the experience going through the center and they dismiss the chakras, and that experience happens once in 1978, but then never happens again. Ultimately, we want the energy flowing fluidly throughout the nervous system, through all 7 chakra centers, throughout the body. And when it really integrates, like with me, like I don't notice it unless I pay attention to it. When I pay attention to it, it feels like a river's raging through me, but it's just flowing in the background because the chakras are open. When the chakras aren't open, you feel like it gets stuck, and it just has to focus on one center for a period of time. So anyways, I went way over again, but it's been nice to sit here with you all. I encourage you, if you want to have some bigger breakthroughs, spend more time in meditation, more time doing healing work, more time doing yoga, and of course, more time doing retreat practice. It can be quite healing. Before we're done, let's all just close our eyes and just give ourselves permission to breathe deeply and to connect into the depth of our nature, connecting to that which is good, that which is true, that which is beautiful. And from this place, inviting the grace of God to flow into our life, to lead us, to guide us, inviting the intelligence of Kundalini to be calm, to be smooth, to be gentle with us, and to show us the way, show us where we need to let go, and show us where we need to step forward more fully. in alignment with this highest nature. And so much love to each and every one of you. I will see you all next time. Goodbye, everyone. Bye for now.